Week 9 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few wide receivers I look to get on the waiver wire this week. The first guy, Joshua Palmer, the Los Angeles Chargers. So we know Mike Williams, he's going to miss some time with an ankle injury here. And I know Palmer, he missed the Week 7 ball game with a concussion. And Week 8, obviously, this Charger team was on bye. But Palmer, we've seen some decent ball games out of him this season when Keenan Allen was back. But it looks like Allen will be back. And Week 9's a great ball game to bring Joshua Palmer back and possibly even start him for your fantasy league with a great matchup in Week 9 at Atlanta that gives up the most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So right here with Mike Williams out, they're going to need a guy who could stretch the field a little bit. Keenan Allen, hopefully he's 100%, and we know he's more of a possession receiver than a deep ball guy. So Palmer filling in for Williams, I think, makes it even better this offense than Williams and Palmer at the same time filling in for Keenan Allen. But anyway, he's available in tons of fantasy leagues, surprisingly, in 76% of fantasy leagues. He's going to be starting. He's going to be playing a lot of snaps. And he's got a good matchup in Week 9. So right here, Joshua Palmer, I have as an ad this week. The next guy is Mecole Hardman of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Hardman, I know he was on bye week this week, but he's coming off a 3-touchdown game in Week 7 in San Francisco. 2 carries, 28 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. 4 catches, 32 yards and a touch. And then going back to Week 6 versus Buffalo, 3 catches, 42 yards and a touchdown. So 3 weeks in a row, Hardman's had double-digit fantasy points. So right now, Chiefs are working him into the offense more. He's getting more opportunities. And hey, I know they traded for Kadarius Toney, but I don't think Toney's going to pick up the playbook right away and eat into Hardman's workload and playing time. But right here, Hardman, he could be used as a gadget guy. He could be used as a deep ball threat. And the last few weeks, like I mentioned here, this Chief team, they're starting to integrate him into the offense more. And he's available right now in 65% of fantasy leagues. The next wide receiver is Terrace Marshall Jr. of the Carolina Panthers. So this Panther team, I know they're not a great team, but at least P.J. Walker's moving the football around. They're getting players involved. DJ Moore, we saw him go over 150 yards and a touchdown. And Terrace Marshall Jr., your guy last season they drafted was this Panther team. 4 catches, 87 yards on 9 targets in Week 8. So right here, he's a guy I've been keeping an eye on over the last few weeks here, especially since the Robbie Anderson trade to the Arizona Cardinals. And Marshall Jr., he's been getting the job done in terms of playing time and targets. I know the numbers haven't been there for fantasy, but he had a good ball game, like I mentioned, Week 8 at Atlanta. So right now, he's more of a deeper league ad, available in 99% of fantasy leagues. But he's got a tougher matchup, no doubt about it, Week 9 at Cincinnati. That gives up the 4th least amount of fantasy points to receivers on the season. But obviously the Panthers could be trailing early and often in this game, and they're going to have to throw probably. So Marshall right now could be a decent ad this week. The next guy is Damiere Byrd of the Atlanta Falcons. So Damiere Byrd, we know he's a speedy wide receiver, a former New England Patriot, and over the last couple weeks here, he's been seeing the field and making plays for this Falcon team. But another deeper league type of ad is Damiere Byrd. Week 7 in Cincinnati, 1 catch, 75-yard touchdown. And then Week 8 versus Carolina, 3 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. So he's bringing that speed factor to this Atlanta Falcon team. And this Falcon team, believe it or not, are in first place right now in the division with Tampa Bay free-falling, Carolina really not that good of a football team, obviously, here. And the Saints, they've been up and down as well. So right now, the first-place Falcons playing mediocre football, but they're in first in the weak division as it is now. Damiere Byrd's been making plays, and right now with another decent matchup where they could be chasing points in Week 9. I have him in his ad this week, and he's available in 100% of fantasy leagues. And the 5th and final wide receiver I looked at on the wire this week is Devin Duvernay, the Baltimore Ravens. So Duvernay, he's been hit or miss, no doubt about it this season here is Duvernay. 1 good game, 1 bad game, banged up a game. But he's a guy to mention, no doubt, this week here after coming off a good ball game at Tampa Bay. 2 carries, 33 yards, a rushing touchdown, and 4 catches, 31 yards. So right here, Week 9, a good matchup on paper at the New Orleans Saints that give up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So Rashad Bateman, he hasn't looked good this season for the most part here. Injuries playing a factor. And once again, he could be out, is Bateman, if he can't recover in time for Monday Night Football in Week 9. But right here, Devin Duvernay, they use him as a gadget guy and in different roles. And this season in PPR leagues, he has 5 PPR games out of the first 8 this season. So not horrible. As a flex option with receiver in 3 receiver leagues, I think he's addable is Duvernay. So that's a few wide receivers I'll add on the waiver wire for week 9 of the fantasy football season.